Hello everyone, hi, welcome to today's video. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Neva, and today I just wanted to do a little sit down and chat about the aftermath of my C-section. I have avoided talking about this online for 9 months. I'm 9 and a bit months postpartum, and the reason for that is sort of because, well, basically just because it was kind of a traumatic experience, and I'm not going to get into the real details of the C-section and of the labor and everything itself, but I do really want to talk about what happened afterwards, because I feel like this is a topic that just sort of goes somewhat unspoken. People just don't really address it. I couldn't find a lot of information about it after my C-section. And yeah, I just wanted to make a really honest video talking about all of this, the emotional, the physical, all the difficulties, and about what I would do differently now going into it, and about all the things that I wished I had, and I don't know, just going through and talking about all the different stuff. So yeah, I guess that's it. I'm recording this video sort of at the last minute, so I have a basket of laundry next to me here that I'm going to be folding because baby is napping, so I only have so much time to get this recorded, so I'm gonna do some chores while I talk. Anyway, the first thing I want to say, first of all, is that well, let me back up for a sec. I went into labor on, let's just say day 1, and I was in labor until day 3. I was still in labor, and I finally ended up in a C-section. So it was a lot of hours of pain, a lot of hours of struggle, and I was exhausted, a lot of multiple days in a row with 0 sleep. It was super, super intense, and I ended up in a C-section, which is not what I planned for. I planned for a supernatural birth, with my midwife, and absolutely no intervention. I thought it would be so beautiful and peaceful and, all that stuff. And yeah, that just did not happen for me. And so that was a really difficult thing to come to terms with. So if you're planning for a natural birth and then you don't get the birth that you were hoping for, obviously that kind of hurts. So that already was a little bit of a wound, kind of, because I was obviously hoping for something really nice and didn't really get the experience that I wanted. Now, of course, I'm not complaining because my baby and I were both healthy, and we're both healthy now, and so that's really what matters. But still, in the end, it was a little bit bummer. And it meant that because I wasn't planning for a C-section, I didn't have any plan in place for what it would be like after having a C-section, because that's not what I was thinking was gonna happen. And so I didn't have anything prepared. And so now I know, looking back, what I would have had ready for myself if I knew I was gonna be having this major, major surgery. Which is another thing, wow, I'm just sort of going on a little rant here, but that's just another thing that I find incredibly frustrating, is that nobody seems to understand that a C-section is major, major surgery. Whoa, major surgery. I had no understanding of how intense it was really gonna be afterwards. In general, having a baby is a pretty massive thing on your body, but to have multiple layers of flesh cut open and your muscles pushed apart and all that stuff is just so intense on your body, and the recovery was not easy. And I think that a lot of people don't really get that, and so having a C-section isn't looked at like it's a major thing. I'm just thinking about how if somebody had back surgery or knee surgery, there would be, follow-up doctor's appointments and physical therapy, and people would check in to see how they're doing and all that stuff. And with a C-section, nobody acts like that. It's really, really weird. People are just oh, well, she had a baby. I'm well, yeah, but it's a lot more than that. And I'm not here to argue that a natural birth or a C-section is harder or easier or whatever, but I think that the aftermath of having a C-section is way beyond the natural birth recovery. The actual procedure and everything itself is one thing, but it takes months. My body still isn't 100% healed. I always have this big scar that sometimes itches and pulls and hurts, and yeah, it's just not the same. So I just want to set that aside. I think other than the physical healing aspect, the hardest part for me about having a C-section, because it was not planned, was just the feeling of, I don't want to say inadequacy, but just my body couldn't do something that I wanted it to be able to do. And there's this feeling I don't want to say this and make anybody feel bad. I'm trying to find a way to word this without hurting anybody's feelings. And if you're opting for a C-section, then this is like not directed towards you at all. But I just think that a lot of women who end up in C-section when they didn't plan for it feel like their body couldn't do what it was supposed to do, like the natural thing it should do. And it's just a silly thing to think. And I just want everybody to know that like you're not alone in that thought. And even now, like months and months after my C-section, even though I know logically that it's silly to feel that way, I sometimes just can't help it. And I feel like I end up feeling jealous of women when I see like on Instagram people, you know, talking about these beautiful birth experiences, and it makes me feel like angry with them because it's not fair, because they get to have something that I don't. And I hate that feeling of like jealousy, because that's such a lame feeling to have. And you know what? If what it means you have to do is not follow people that post stuff about that, you know, not involve yourself in conversations with people who are, you know, preaching about their beautiful natural birth experience, then just don't. Like, remove yourself from that situation, and like don't look at stuff that makes you feel bad about yourself, because that's just silly, you know, because there's no reason to like beat yourself up. At the end of the day, my body created a house for my baby, and my baby is here and she's healthy and I'm healthy, and that's all that matters. Okay, so things I wish that I had ready for the aftermath of my C-section. The first thing is, it's kind of a random thing, but high-waisted underpants. Like, I didn't realize that after having a C-section, like your scar, like the incision, is right on your bikini line. And so it meant that I had no underwear that I could wear. So once the bleeding stopped and I wasn't wearing like diapers or big pads or whatever, I didn't have any underwear that I could wear that wouldn't like irritate the incision. And so I had to order high-waisted, like, you know, granny panty type underpants. Going off that, the other thing is pads. When you have a natural birth, and apparently also when you have a C-section, you are going to bleed afterwards, although with a C-section usually the bleeding is a lot less, and so for me it didn't last very long, but I definitely was glad to have lots and lots of pads around so that I could always make sure I was clean. The other thing is food. Like, having food prepared or having somebody to make you food is really, really important. I was really lucky that I had family there, and so I always had someone available to me to make me something to eat. But you just don't think about the fact that just getting out of bed and going to the kitchen, like, it's really hard, and standing in the kitchen and preparing food, like, you also have a tiny baby to take care of, on top of the fact that your body was just like ripped apart by this tiny baby. So yeah, having somebody to make you food, or having lots of frozen meals prepared, or like quick things like granola bars and like protein shakes and all that kind of stuff is super, super important. Another thing that might seem kind of obvious, but I feel like is worth mentioning, is you just had major surgery, so you're probably gonna need some help just getting around the house, like at least for the first few days. It really depends on the person, and everybody's healing process is different, but I really, really struggled even with something like getting out of bed, and I always needed someone to like help pull me up. Like in the hospital, you have those like handle things that you use to pull yourself out of the hospital bed, but once we got home, I didn't have that, and it meant I always needed someone to help get me up out of bed or off the couch or whatever for a little while after my surgery. Which actually leads me into my next point, which is I had a very, very soft, like memory foam mattress, and I spent a lot of time in bed after my C-section, and it was really hard to get out of bed because the memory foam, you like, you know, slip into it a little bit, and so it meant that it was like basically impossible for me to get out of bed by myself. Even when I wasn't in a lot of pain anymore, you like don't have control over your abs. I actually assume that it's kind of like this even if you have a natural birth, because your abs have been like separated, like pushed aside for your like baby to exist inside you. And so getting out of bed was really, really hard because I would sink like so deep into the mattress. So maybe like a more hard or like flatter, less memory foam mattress would be something that I would consider if I would know I was having a C-section. Another thing that I want to add that I think is sort of different for each person, but I was really grateful that I had a bunch of super loose, comfy, like loose fitting clothing, because I found that all my like leggings or like tighter clothes, like not stuff that was like restrictive, but anything that just like pressed up against my skin just a little bit in that area of my incision was really, really sensitive. And so I just wanted to wear like really baggy, really like loose fitting clothing. And I ended up actually buying a couple things because I just couldn't stand to have anything like pressed up against my skin there. So loose fitting clothing was a necessity for me. Something that I wish that I would have known if I had like known I was gonna have a C-section is that it was gonna be really, really difficult for me to hold my baby. And I never thought about this. And part of the problem is that I'm really, really short and my baby was born really, really long. And so when she would lay on my chest or like right here to like try to nurse, it was a problem because her feet would kick and like press into my stomach, into where my incision was, and it was so painful. And it meant that even just holding my baby was really, really hard for me. And then that made like nursing more difficult. It made everything more difficult because you want to do a lot of skin to skin, and obviously you want to be holding your baby. And I really, really struggled with that. And there's not really anything that can be done about that. That's just like the way it is if you're short and you have a long baby and you had a C-section. But I just feel like it's worth mentioning here because, yeah, it was just sort of like a thing that I found difficult to deal with. Anyway, I think that that's basically all I have to say for this video. I know this was a really weird way to go about talking about all this. It was kind of a rant and stuff, but I just feel like people aren't really honest about this kind of thing. And I know that when I ended up having my C-section, I had never heard anybody really speak like bluntly about how difficult it was and the struggles that they had with it and all that kind of stuff. And so I just wanted to be really candid here. And I don't want anybody to feel discouraged if they like know they're going to be going into a C-section, because I think that you can have a beautiful C-section if you plan accordingly and are thoughtful about it. But because I ended up in one that I didn't want to be in and I wasn't ready and prepared like physically or emotionally or anything, that was a pretty like big shock and a pretty big deal for me. Yeah, I guess I just wanted to kind of chat about it. I don't know, like sort of just, if you sat through all of this, then, well, thanks, because I'm not sure where I was really going with all this, but I just wanted to sit and talk about it. So anyway, I hope that at least this was somewhat beneficial. Sorry if you can hear my cat over there eating his kibble. It's a little bit of an annoying sound, but anyway, I guess that's it. And yeah, I hope that you got something worthwhile out of this video. If you did have a C-section, or if you are planning to have a C-section, please comment below. Let's have a little conversation about it. Let me know what you think of this video, and yeah, I guess that's it. I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.